So in this video, I want to outline some of the financial mistakes I made in my first blind maddening run, and one of those was Staves. So Staves are very expensive, and certain Staves will blow through your money faster than you can imagine, and one of those Staves is Physic. Now Physic is something that if you've played 3 houses, you're used to just burning through, because it's not a staff and you just get so many of them a match. Like you get like 5 to 10 physics a map, and you don't even think of it. Same thing with like Fortify and Warp and all these things. So if you played a lot of 3 houses before this game, you might be thinking like, oh yeah, I should get Physic. You really don't need Physic almost ever in this game. There's like a handful of times where it even makes sense to split up your forces, and most maps you're heavily punished for splitting up your forces unless you have some huge gimmick strat that you're running. And even then, if you're running a huge gimmick, you still probably don't need Physic, because if the gimmick relies on dodge tanking or just like face tanking things or mitigating damage, you can probably still have a healer nearby. But Physic on my first playthrough almost bankrupted me. Like if I were to buy all these stabs, and I did, I just kept buying Physics. It's 3k per Physic staff, and it only has 10 uses. Compare that to heal. It heals for the same amount as heal too, by the way. Or no, I'm sorry. It actually heals for less. It heals for less, like you can see here. Power. It actually heals for less than heal. So, yeah. Now, if you want some range on your heal, Hortensia has +1 range, so she can heal a tile away with heal and mend. Mend isn't a bad investment because it's a good spike heal, as you can see here. But heal should be your standard heal, 100%. It's super cheap, you get a lot of uses, it will help you manage your economy. Another mistake I made in terms of finances was buying Illums for some of the dark maps. You do not need these. The reason you don't need these is because something else exists that's much cheaper. You can use a torch. Torches are 200 cheaper. I only bought like 2 or 3 of these, but I do regret it. It's not worth it. Now, it can be okay because it gives you experience. So if you want to look at it in terms of like buying something to get experience, that's fine. But I don't recommend getting it. Some of these staffs, I don't recommend buying either. You get a free staff, so you should just use it very rarely. You eventually get a silent staff. I don't find these super useful. They can be used, but they're very expensive. Buying warp and rewarp early, you don't need these to beat most content, and you can probably just save your rewarps and warps. So I would say do not waste your warps and rewarps early on. Restore isn't too bad. Restore is like reasonably expensive, but Physic definitely was one of the contributing factors that bankrupted my first playthrough. So definitely avoid it. It's definitely a pitfall. Now, what are the upsides of Physic? You can heal at range, but the range really isn't even that good. It's 1 to 5. It's not like it's like 3 houses range where you're hitting things like 15 tiles away or some nonsense. It's slightly further than you could reach normally. And with Canter, like if a lot of your units have Canter, you shouldn't need it anyways. But that's one of the mistakes. I don't think you should ever run this. This seems terrible. Fracture. Obstruct is actually pretty good. So here's the thing. If you want to have a utility staff, you can't go wrong with Obstruct. And a lot of things, like a lot of problems that Physic can solve, Obstruct can also solve. So like instead of needing to Physic, you can just obstruct an enemy to prevent a hit, and preventing a hit prevents that unit from needing healed, and it still gives you XP and SP to use Obstruct. So Obstruct is just better. But also look at the range on it, 1 to 8. You can body block, like you can have 2 healers body block things at range and like break apart enemy formations. I would say Obstruct is worth it, normal heal. Mend I'm iffy on. I definitely bought too many mends. For some reason, like I bought like, I don't know, 5 to maybe 7 on my first playthrough when I didn't even need them. It's just not worth it. Even if you have to use 2 heals, it's still more efficient in terms of economy. Now in terms of spike healing, yeah, mend's better. But you should really only mend when you need to. Like if you know an enemy's not going to kill one of your units and it just needs like 10 more health, the heal is enough like extra health, and you don't need to mend, you shouldn't. And if you're going to run mend in Physic, I would always make sure to have a healing staff on your healers, so that way when you don't need to use these, you're not forced to. One of the mistakes I made was just having Physic on a healer And then when I could just heal someone normally with heal, I just had Physic. So then you're burning quite 300 gold per use. So think about Physic this way. It costs you 300 gold every single time you use it. That's pretty sobering. Mend isn't so bad. Heal is definitely the most efficient. Heal, I think, is endgame ready. Like, you can use it, it's fine. There's ways to scale healing. There's passives that increase healing amount. You can always have, like, have a heal and a mend. Usually I run mages that can also use staves or like griffin knights. So I have like 2 slots for staves. So I usually will run like a heal and an obstruct, a heal and a warp, a heal and a rewarp, something like that. So that way everyone has heal, because you can't go wrong with it. And then I'll run restore if it's a map where there's like problems that needs addressed. So restore kind of circumstantially gets used. But yeah, definitely don't blow your money on Physic and Mend, especially Physic. Physic will bankrupt you. I have some. I could sell them. They sell for 1.5k. Honestly, I'm going to sell my Physics. I'll sell one of them. I don't plan on using them, and I've beaten all these maps, so I know what each map entails, and there was never a moment where my entire team is balled up and we're just like fighting the enemy team, where I'm like, oh man, if I could heal at 5 range, this would have made the difference here. Like, the game really punishes you for splintering off, unless there's a really good reason for doing so, but there should be a dedicated healer to each squad. So if you're doing like a forked strat where you have like 2 groups, you should have a healer with one of those groups, and a healer could be a Griffin Knight. Like, you could have a flying squad and then the healer is a Griffin Knight. It doesn't have to be like a grounded mage or monk or whatever. So, alright, so let's sell this. Recover? I don't think this is worth it either. I got this from a mission that I beat. I probably am going to sell this. I would always keep warps. You never want to sell those. Freeze, you might as well keep it because it doesn't get you much to sell it anyways, and you could use it on some maps. Recover is basically just like super mend. I'm probably going to sell this. I don't see the upside. Mend is already more than enough to heal someone to full. And if you're playing in a way where you need to use recover, like, I beat the game without recover, so I already know I don't need it, so I'm just going to sell it. It's just free money, right? I'll keep a Physic just in case, so that if I'm on some map that I need Physic, I can run it. I have another Physic on a unit that has 7 uses, but I have heal as well, so I never use the Physic unless I absolutely have to. But usually when you have to use Physic, you've just made some kind of tactical mistake anyways. So it can kind of be a get out of jail free card in some instances, but usually just min-maxing a build can get you to a point where you don't need Physic, and that's kind of the argument against it. So I think Physic is actually just straight up bad. Mend, I would avoid using this too. Like, you can have a Mend staff. I've never needed to use it. This is the thing. Like, most times when an enemy would kill something, like say one of my units is at like 10 health, heal is usually enough to put them over the edge so they don't get killed now. There's been very rare situations where I've needed Mend. And Physic heals for less but has range, so keep that in mind as well. So it's actually less efficient to use Physic than to just use heal. What else is a trap for economy? I think these items are unneeded. You can buy these. I think these will burn your money. Pure water, you can just have 1 in your inventory. Another way to make money, you don't really need as many vulnaries and like elixirs in your bank. Oops, let's go to convoy. So like what I like to do, if I have, I'll keep like 2 vulnaries, 2 elixirs, an antitoxin, and this is what I keep. I don't need these, I just didn't sell these, but I keep like this, like 2 an inventory like this, 2 vulnaries, 2 elixirs, and an antitoxin. If I want to ever pull them out of convoy, I can. If I want to put them on units, I can. But anything in excess of that, I sell. Because there's no reason. Like, you have healing stabs. It's nice to have a vulnerary in some instances. You should still have some on like half of your units, I would say. But you're usually better off having a bunch of weapons and a bunch of utility items. Some of these units have pretty compressed inventory. She only has an elixir because someone traded it to her. So she usually has... Just go to inventory. Chloe usually has heal. So someone traded that to her, so I needed it. So having like elixirs on half your units, you can see half my units have like healing items. So another unit can trade them and heal if you need to. Because if you're going to be healing, you can trade and then heal yourself. It's the same thing. But I need to buy her a new healing staff. Must have broken. But yeah, so. And I have Physic on a unit. I have Restore on 2 units. I don't know why she has Restore. Oh, she must have traded for it. Yeah, because she can't use Restore, so. But that's it for this one. Those are just some mistakes I made on my first maddening run. This is my second maddening run. It's going much better. Yeah, avoid these expensive stabs. You don't need them. Like, they're just completely overkill. And once you get Hortensia, she gets range +1. So, and also, the other good thing about Hortensia. Check this out. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought, or okay. She does get a thing. You have to upgrade her class and I believe hit level 5. So let's see. Let me go to inventory. Change class. All right, so her upgraded class gets World Tree. And this is actually a pretty good ability. When unit uses a staff, may not consume a use, trigger equals % dex, and she starts off with 22 dex. So right out of the gate, 22% chance that when she uses a staff, it doesn't consume a charge. That's huge. And then if you can get that to 25%, that's 1 in 4 staff uses you keep. So she essentially would have, 25% more staff uses or whatever. So that's pretty crazy. But that being said, she has the range +1 from her big personality, which is kind of like baby Physic. So you can't really go wrong just using her. And then she gets the range. It also increases her rewarp range and all these other things. So if you want a dedicated staff user that can also deal some damage occasionally, she's definitely probably the best. She's also in a flying class, so you can't really go wrong. Pretty crazy unit, pretty good. Consume staff charges. But yeah, that's it for this one. Don't buy Physic, it's a waste of money. And some of these other stabs are a waste of money. I bought too many men's, too many Physics. It cost me like 30k throughout a single run. 30,000 gold. That's a ton of gold. That's a serious amount of gold for just healing. It's just something stupid. So yeah, peace.